Hello and welcome to the 3-time award-winning Tough Girl podcast, which is all about motivating and inspiring you while increasing the amount of female role models in the media. I'm your host, Sarah Williams. If you love adventure, challenge, and hearing from women who share their stories and provide top tips and advice to help you take on your own personal challenges, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out. New episodes go live every Tuesday at 7 a.m. UK time, with bonus episodes happening on a Thursday. You can support the Tough Girl mission by signing up as a patron by visiting Patreon, patreon.com/Tough Girl Podcast. Keep listening until the very end as I share more information about what's going on with me, with Tough Girl challenges, give shout outs, and recommend other Tough Girl podcast episodes. More information can be found at toughgirlchallenges.com.
I'm Angela Maxwell. I spent 6.5 years walking my way west around the world, having had no experience in any really camping, hiking, long distance walking. And then I think really just in keeping the sense of adventure and into the unknown going, me and 3 other people just set a world record by swimming across the Caspian Sea from Kazakhstan to Azerbaijan. And I like to spend most of my time just going about doing little house sits and continuing being in different places. So I'm settled into Wales for the winter, over in Western Wales, not far from you.
Which I absolutely love. So we've got a mutual friend, Miriam Lancewood, and she messaged me saying, "Oh, you totally need to speak to my friend Angela. She's an absolute legend. She's walked around the world, and she's currently in Wales." And I was literally just like, A, that's incredible. B, that's Wales, and like, I can see Wales from my house, like, well, my parents' house, but like looking across the River Dee into northern Wales. So amazing that you're in this neck of the woods, and so many things there I want to talk about. The 6.5 years walking west around the world, the Caspian Sea, also talking about your life now and, like house sitting and how you ended up in Wales and what's going to be next. But one of the things that I do love to do is I love going back to people's childhood just to see, what were you like as a little girl? Like, did you have a sense of adventure? Did you spend time outdoors in nature? What were your early years like?
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I was telling a story to a friend recently that started with the fact that when I was 30, I got chicken pox. And it's very rare that we know of adults getting them. A lot of times, especially before the vaccine, all these kids would get chicken pox and they'd have these little pox parties. And you'd get, the kids together in a room so they could get it and just get over it. I don't know if you experienced that as a kid at all, like these pox parties.
I think we had one. I think we've got photos. I'd have to ask my mum, but I think we had photos. There's 3 of us, so my older brother, me, and my younger sister playing Hungry Hungry Hippos on the floor. And I feel as though we were all covered in like red spots.
First off, I loved Hungry Hungry Hippos. Had that game too. And it was interesting because I remember when I got it, everyone was in disbelief. Even the doctor was like, wow, it's rare that we see this in an adult. And I remember calling my mom and saying, Mom, I just got chickenpox. I mean, I just turned 30. Like, did I not have these as a kid? And she's like, honey, I can't remember. I said, but really, like, you never, even I knew about the pox parties. You never like got me to a pox party. And she started laughing. She goes, honey, you really didn't have any friends. And we still laugh about it today in the sense that I was just an introvert before I think we had the terminology and even the acceptance of that. So that even as a young kid, I was an introvert. And sure, I play like in the backyard or certain things. But one of the things is that even though because I grew up in the suburbs. So, very much almost British style, houses right next to each other, and you're lucky to have just a little backyard. And my parents weren't big on getting out into nature or hiking. So my love of nature came later in life, a little bit more as a teenager. But I think where there's an interest, kind of a connection to who I am now, was that I always liked my own company. So the kind of aspect of being out in nature, or even for some people, let's say spending the day hiking alone or being alone, is that you have to kind of be with your own thoughts. And so I think as a young kid, there was a kind of a crafting of that, of willing to play alone, be alone. And then that led to the daydreaming, right? So I'd look at the books, the ancient wonders of the world, and dream of travel. So I had that love of it, even though I didn't really travel till I was much older.
Yeah. Oh, it's so interesting because I don't know if this sounds like narcissistic, where I'm actually like, I love my own company. I think I'm hysterical. I think I'm brilliant.
Yes. You're like, I talk to myself. I laugh to myself. I'm fine being alone, right? I love that.
Did you have much sort of, I suppose, like inspiration or role models, or was there? And this is probably very difficult to even remember. Like, did you remember like reading books or seeing stories or see other women doing anything like this, which has maybe like spark that little fire inside you, or where did the dream come from?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, I think the desire in terms of travel and to see something beyond our own backyard. It probably came from books and movies. I mean, I remember hearing about Gertrude Bell when I was younger. Oftentimes, because, at the time, which this is, the 80s and early 90s, there weren't tons of strong female character movies, right? So, even kind of trying to see yourself in the Indiana Jones or, Lawrence of Arabia, like there's almost this part of me that would see myself even in the men doing those roles, so that when I did discover women doing things, I mean, Jane Goodall, who doesn't she inspire? I mean, even just kind of the things of giving in the world, exploring, connecting with people outside of our own culture, that just kind of built. But it was never like a certain book or a story that I could say this thing inspired me. And I think that's kind of the power of the daydream, is that, okay, well, this might be a male figure, but surely a woman could do that too.
I think two of my favorite movies had to be like G.I. Jane and like Legally Blonde. And I was just like, it's just so inspired. And like, there's this one scene in Legally Blonde, which like, I'll show you how valuable Elle Woods can be when she's getting her laptop or something. And I always remember, I was literally like, I'll show you how valuable Sarah Williams can be. Like, if I'm facing like a different challenge. And then G.I. Jane, just for the motivation of like, I want to be strong and fit and healthy. And oh, Jane Goodall, she's amazing. What an absolute inspiration. And you are now one of these inspirations for other women out there, because they will look at you and just be like, oh my goodness, you followed your dream. You walked around the world, which is absolutely incredible. And this is, I know my next question, it will be the question that you probably get asked the most, which is that three-letter word.
Yes.
And to be honest, you probably, maybe there is one answer. Maybe your answer changes over time. Maybe you almost like don't necessarily even want to talk about it anymore. And maybe it's changed as you've got older. But that question of like, why, like, why? And I suppose I'd add on to that as well. It's like, how did it even come about? When you started thinking about it, and then I don't know, like having the idea and actually making it a reality, and actually being like, no, I'm going to do this.
Yeah. Yeah, it is the infamous three-letter word that, even to this day, I feel like, in some ways I try to see if I can explore different answers to it. But I think a really good way to describe it is that I didn't start walking because I was fearless, but really because I was terrified. Meaning, how this came about was just one of those things where you wonder, where does an idea come from? Is it really ours? Where's that inspiration? And even if we read a story of someone else and it's like, oh, that was a cool thing what they did. What even compels you to then decide to go do something, similar, especially something that's so grand and life changing for us? So I had actually just heard about someone who was walking, a guy who wasn't actually walking around the world. He was stationary, but he was kind of counting his miles as if he was. And I remember just thinking, oh, but that's brilliant. Like an actual walk around the world. And I think it did touch on that little girl part of me that loved the idea of adventure, and we know that most of the time, I mean, travel is a privilege and it's usually pretty expensive, but when I was hearing about someone walking, I thought, wow, what a great way to see the world. And what happened from that was a little bit of an obsession. Who's walked it? What men have done it? Is there a woman who's done it? And I started just discovering women who had walked different places, but some who had ran. Of course, then you're finding other female adventurers who solo sailed the world. And then it's like it kicks in this inspiration that somewhere along these couple of months of having heard about someone walking to realizing I think I need to go walk around the world, I it shaped into something that what I feel is just like a calling. It's something so strong that you might regret not doing it when you're, quote, on your proverbial deathbed. It was this feeling like, I don't know how to explain it, but this feels like something I have to go do. This is what I came here to do. I don't know why, someone who's so inexperienced, but I feel like if I don't do it, I might always regret it. And that's why the thing is it's not fearless. It was terror of not listening to my own heart and my own calling. I'd rather do that no matter how scary and exciting it is to undertake something like this. I was more scared of not doing that than of all the things that could go wrong and losing my career and my life. So it was choosing the calling of the heart in a way.
Just briefly, talk us through your route. What did the journey look like? What sort of way did you go?
Yeah, so one thing is I knew I wanted to go west because I was living on the west coast of the US at the time. And I thought, because I was leaving from my best friend's house and I wanted to return, kind of a start and a finish was to start from her place, finish at her place, that I would go west around the world so that I could finish across the states. And I wanted that because it was like a real homecoming. Like, okay, this is the comfort. I'll be back in the States for the last, long haul. And I wanted to do about 4 continents. So I had planned, doing Australia, which was the first continent I did. And I went, instead of east to west, which a lot of people do, I did kind of north to south on the west coast. So I did Western Australia. I went up to Vietnam, where I was going to do Southeast Asia, but I got dengue fever, changed my mind and went up north. And I did Central Asia, going through Mongolia and into Georgia, down into Turkey. And then I did parts of Europe. I did the UK in between Europe. So there was a lot more flying back and forth because of Schengen visas. So I only have 3 months in Europe and 3 months out. So I did bits of the UK. So I actually did John O'Groats up in Scotland, down to Dover, then continued through parts of Europe, up through Switzerland, and then finished across the States. And then I also popped over and did New Zealand at one point. So a lot of my walk was also trying to figure out, where do I go and walk while I'm waiting for the proper visas. And that it was a little bit more of a geopolitical issue to work through rather than just the actual physical walk itself.
4 continents, over 22,000 miles, 16 countries and a handful of islands. And actually, May of 2024 was your 10-year anniversary of finishing the challenge. I mean, have you written a book about this?
I am writing a book as we speak, and I've been trying for 3 years. I will tell you right now, Sarah, that writing a book is way more challenging than swimming or walking. It's quite an endeavor. Yeah.
Because it's almost like I don't even know how to put it into question, because it's just such an incredibly epic challenge, and it's just the time frame as well. And I suppose it's just became, your daily life for, for 6.5 years is the walking. And I mean, has it all blurred into one? There must be like high points, low points, but then I suppose like the day to day, like, is actually your job is to wake up, start walking, explore, see the world, and document it and share it. Were you documenting as you were going? Like, I mean, I'm trying to think. So 2014, was social media around then? Well, Facebook was what, 2008, 9? Oh my God, I'm getting old.
No, I know, me too. It didn't seem as big at the time, but it was definitely a thing. No, I purposely chose not to, and I know for people who are big on social media, it's silly not, it's like, why wouldn't you could have a huge following and whatnot, but it's just not my thing to document. Like I even have problems with selfies. So I decided when I did this, I really wanted to just be totally present, have this be a journey for myself. And I'm generally just a very private, shy person when it comes to sharing things. So I documented for myself. So I will have some photos and some things, and there are little bits out there. Don't get me wrong. There's some old school Instagram posts, in Mongolia or different places, and a couple of little YouTube videos. But for the most part, I consciously decided not to document it.
But you were raising funds though as well, because you wanted to raise awareness and funds for girls. You want to share a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So at least when I first started, I wanted to find a way that, I could create a little bit of an economy with the walk. So I was using my own money. So I'd saved up money, and then I thought, okay, so one of the things I was inspired by was Rosie Swale Pope. She ran around the world. She's actually Welsh, and she ran around the world and she started at the age of 57. And one of I read her book, which is Just a Little Run Around the World. And I was inspired by her giving herself this budget of $5 a day, because if you're camping and you're not spending it on hotels and this or that, and you can, live on noodles and oatmeal and stuff, you don't have to spend much. So I ended up giving myself that same budget. Okay, so about $5 a day, even if you're not spending anything. And then you go and you spend it all on carrying enough food for, let's say, 2 weeks or a month. So based on this thing of having just my own money to spend a little bit on the things that I needed, people would say, well, can we donate to you? Can we give you, a warm meal, a hot shower, things like that? And I thought, yeah, that would be good. But if that's going to come into me for me doing something that is a privilege that I chose to do, how could I give that back? And so for a good 3/4 of the walk up until I walked the US, I did this thing where I would take, if someone gave to me, I gave 50% of that away. So if you gave me $2, I gave $1 away. And so I partnered with different organizations along the way, everything from Women for Women, World Pulse. These are organizations that were helping women, everything from saving them from sex trafficking and giving them education and shelter, to helping women become grassroots leaders. So I kind of moved between different organizations, just giving them little bits here and there, because I wasn't promoting. I didn't really get a lot of donations. But for most of it, I thought I have a little something to give. And then at the very last part across the US, I did a bigger campaign with her Future Coalition, which was helping to save girls and even young boys from human trafficking and giving them shelter. And we raised $20,000. It took about 8 months across the states. Because that just feels good to always be able to feel like if you're going to do something, especially something that's of a privilege and in the world of adventure, it's great when you can, give back and support in some way.
I think it almost like links into just having like a bit of a purpose. Like it's something that I've sort of, no, I wouldn't say I've necessarily struggled with it, but it's more when you start doing it on the regular, like traveling all the time and doing adventures all the time, it almost becomes too selfish. And so for me, how I sort of balance that is to make sure that I do share it, because I know that there are people out there who would never be able to do the adventures and challenges that I'm doing, but hopefully I can bring them along with me and share it in such a way that they're sort of involved and can see it unfolding. So, and it also gives, I suppose, me more of a purpose, and to encourage other women to think, okay, so that's how Sarah did it. All right, so that's how much it costs to do X, Y, Z. Okay, those are some of the challenges that she had, and that's how she dealt with it. 6.5 years is such a long time. Did you, and obviously you shared at the beginning, you're very good, you like your own company, you're good having your own thoughts, you're a little bit more introverted. Did you ever want to quit? Like you must have had those bad days where you're just like, actually, do you know what? I want to be, I don't know, like comfortable at home and maybe doing what 98% of the rest of the population is doing, instead of leaving this sort of alternative lifestyle for so long?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the thing is, a little bit of the stubborn streak in me. I never thought of quitting because I thought, there's no way I can quit, no matter how difficult it gets. However, the fact that I had let go, like I had no home. I just had like a couple of boxes of, books and, like some Turkish rug that I loved, that I had all these things just kind of stored in a box that one day I might use them again. And funny enough, they're still just sitting in those boxes, a decade later. But I didn't even have anything to go back to. Right. And so even though there were times I thought, this is absolutely crazy, Angela, I'm sitting in this blizzard. My tent is just blowing away. I'm trying to hunker down and hope that the wind doesn't take me and I'm freezing. And I think, I can't believe I'm choosing to be here. This is my choice. But then, what happens is you wake up, the sun is shining, and then you're like, oh, right, this is why I'm doing it. It's really that place of enjoying being in the unknown and not knowing what's happening. And I've found that that's my thriving place. I think I struggle when I'm in the known. And I really thrive more in not knowing what lies around the corner, not knowing who you'll meet and what will happen. To me, that's the little adventures of our life. You wake up, you go to a new coffee shop, and you just never know. There's always just this little bit of magic of what might lie around the corner for us.
Do you still enjoy walking now?
I do. I do. After I finished the walk, I did give normalcy a go. I mean, first off, I had to make some money. And so I worked for a couple of friends. I saved up and I was looking at going, for a walk. I wanted to do Iceland, which I hadn't done. There were parts of Europe I didn't get to do, things like that. And I thought, I really want to go back on the road. And as I was looking into that, is when I connected with my friend who's also been walking around the world. And so I went and did Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan, and then inevitably ended up swimming as part of it. So I do enjoy it, but I do find the difference is I don't think I do anything long term. I think if anything from 1 month to a 3 month kind of expedition is more my sweet spot now.
Would you ever do like one of the classic sort of through hikes with Pacific Crest Trail, Appalachian, Continental Trail, anything like that? Does that sort of float your boat, or is that not really your thing?
You know what? So I find it too crowded. I did.
Yeah.
So there were 2 times on the walk that I ditched my cart that I named Athena. I put her aside, and I actually did here in the UK. Part of it was the Pennine Way.
Yep.
And then I also did Tararoa in New Zealand. Well, I did part of Tararoa, and I'll never forget, like, I loved being, much lighter. I mean, my cart generally, it has everything, the tent, the food. I can carry up to a month's supply of food, sometimes, up to a week's worth of water. I mean, depending on the terrain and where I'm at and the weather. And I love the independence of that. And I have nothing on my body, but then you put this heavy backpack, and I'm carrying all this gear, but I loved that I'm in the mountains. It's a very different experience than getting up and deciding which road to take. But my goodness, I mean, the amount of people every day that would pass by and people rushing to get to the huts. And I just thought, nope, way too crowded. And it also felt like I'm just following a trail that everyone else is following. I like to get up and choose what direction I'm going to go for the day.
You've done quite a few sort of like TED Talks, obviously other podcast interviews, and you shared quite a bit about like finding courage. And I'd love for you to just share a little bit more about your thoughts on courage.
Oh, yeah, that's a good one. Well, I think so. One of the things that when I had self-doubt creep in, I mean, both before I started walking and even at times when I was walking, I realized that I had this idea, particularly with women who had done amazing things, and again, I'm thinking of Rosie Sproul Pope and Fiona Campbell, who also walked across different continents. And, I saw these people as something different than me. Like, they were born a certain way. They were born courageous. They've done something that I could probably never do. And it really was, at parts of being on the walk of me realizing just to get out the front door took the courage, just to say yes to a calling for anything that we want to do, especially when it's a major life change. If we change a job, knowing we might make less money, but we'll be happier. I mean, all these pivotal points we hit in our life, it takes courage to do that, especially when it feels risky. So one of the things is, when walking, one of my great fears is, I talking about the TEDx talk, I gave a talk called Courage is a Verb. And it was about one of my worst fears happening in Mongolia, which was a man attacking me in my tent. And I remember, thinking, well, this is exactly what everyone feared for me. This is what my mom and my best friend, oh my God, this could happen to you, a woman being out there alone. And the thing was that, first off, it can happen anywhere. It can happen in a city parking lot. It could happen anywhere. However, having something happen and us make a decision, meaning it's a verb, we have to choose it, choosing to keep going, choosing to find joy even through grief. All of these things, these little daily courages that we choose, it's just reminded me that it's not something that one person is courageous and the other isn't. It's a choice and it's something we craft. And the more we choose courage, even the little things in our lives, to the bigger courageous choices, we realize that we actually get to craft that we all innately have in us, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. I think it's so powerful, and especially, the decision that you made to continue, because I think one of the stats that I read is actually the most dangerous place for a woman is actually in the home. So it can happen
Yes.
anywhere. It's
That's
just
so
it's
well
not.
said. I mean, that's
Yeah.
what people said. I mean, I think that's why when people will sometimes say, "Oh, I could never do what you're doing." And I know that it doesn't mean, that they couldn't walk a long distance, right? We can all do those difficult things. I know they mean, oh, being alone and, camping alone and the fear of someone, meaning harm or anything. But like you said, oftentimes it's in our own homes or it's in our own backyards or it's in our own, villages and things like that. And so that's why it doesn't matter where we are, but it's being aware and feeling confident and choosing courage, whatever that looks like that day for us.
Yeah. When when did you make the decision that, and I don't know if this was an easy decision for you to make, when you started to think, I suppose, realize that your walk was coming to an end, or that you were going to be finishing soon? What thoughts were going through your head at that point?
Terror, like what? What?
What am I going to
What?
do?
Yeah, what am I going to do now? Especially because for me, I was finishing where I started, so it really was coming back around, almost like full circle. And like I'm a different person. I've had different experiences, and what does that mean now? And so, to be honest with you, I think as a lot of people, I've spoken. There's a friend, Tom Tursick. He walked around the world with his dog and just had a book published, which was great. We had a conversation about that, and y- most everyone, I mean, even people who've gone for just even a month out in nature, you come back and there's a little feeling of depression. It can feel suffocating. And it's really hard when you've been, you feel so connected, which I believe is because you feel so deeply into who you are and the feeling like what our heart is saying and what we want. And we feel good about who we are. We feel good in our skin and we feel competent and capable and strong. And then you go back into the world of like information coming at you and expectations. And it's hard to kind of keep up to speed with that. So it really was talking about courage. It took a different kind of courage for me to say, well, I can choose courage to keep walking when there's a snowstorm or it's, freezing, below freezing temperatures or whatever. But man, here I am in this different environment and I need to choose this daily courage to show up where the expectations are different, the dynamic is different. And it took me a while. It took me a good 2 years of kind of floundering a bit, having a hard time being back into kind of the norm of society. And here I am now thinking, I don't know if I'll ever be able to do that, whatever that is.
Did you do much walking in Africa?
I didn't. No, I haven't done. Actually, Miriam and Miriam and I have a little bit of a dream that we'll walk Africa together at some point, in the future. But no, I
Oh,
didn't
I love
South
that.
America or Africa.
Oh, when you were in Europe, did you do any of the Camino? Oh God, the Caminos would have been horrendous for you.
Yeah, I definitely steered clear of the Camino. Yeah, because that would have been way too much traffic.
Just, it would be so many people, and also like you would be in, and because every time you said oh, what are you doing, oh, you just wouldn't be able to tell people because you'd never stop talking, not in a bad way, but just because people would be so in awe of you, and they'd be like, oh my God, that's amazing, tell me more. And you'd probably just be like, I'm tired, I don't want to talk about it anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, that can happen. I mean, I do like backpacking just because you can truly go off the beaten path. You have more ability to where you can go than when you have a wheeled cart of all your belongings. And so I probably would do some backpack trips, but yeah, probably less likely to do any of the major trails in different countries.
Let's flip it a bit. Caspian Sea. swimming across it. Swimming, very different from walking. Different muscles, different mindset, or how did you need to train much for this? Was this a spur of the moment? Yeah, let's just do it. Let's just say yes. Let's be courageous. Or is this more of a something that had built up over time, or a dream that you'd had?
Right. So there's a little bit of this theme where I started walking around the world and I had no experience whatsoever other than a few day hikes, right? You come home, you take a warm shower, you order pizza and watch Netflix. So I didn't have much experience in that, and it's like, well, I'll learn along the way. The swim actually was a bit of a joke. My friend Carl, who he's been walking west around the world as well, and his has just been a longer journey because he can only go to a place like if he can't get a visa, he waits until he can get a visa. So it's been like 20 something years he's been on this journey. And we've done some expeditions together. We did one in Mongolia with camels at one point, and so I knew we worked well together. And when I went to walk with him, Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan, because of the politics happening in Russia and then down in Iran. So I know a lot of people don't know where the Caspian Sea is. Even I was a little bit aloof to where it was beforehand, but it's basically cornered by several countries, but it's south of Russia and north of Iran. And so there was no way of walking around it. And so that it was kind of this challenge of, well, it has to be human powered. That's his rule of thumb. And I liked it because I never would have done that for myself. Like, let me do an epic swim because A, I have a fear of open water, and B, I'm not a good swimmer. I don't swim. Like, you go to a pool and you carry, your margarita across the pool and, you do a handstand here and there, and then you just enjoy the beach or something. But in general, I didn't really know how to swim well. So I liked the challenge of learning. So we actually trained for 2 years, partly because we had issues getting permission to swim across the Caspian and funding, because we needed a boat. We knew it would take about a month to cross, swimming several hours a day. So it was actually a very big undertaking, and I just felt committed to it because I loved the challenge and seeing if I could do it and kind of face a little bit of another fear dealing with open water.
And how did it go?
It was amazing. I mean, it was an incredible challenge, but we had the Azerbaijan government donate a Coast Guard vessel to us, as well as 2 young swimmers. And we had Anastasia, who was 16, and Abu, who was 18, and they were professionally trained swimmers, with the Olympics in their eyes. And we all did it together, and we had this amazing support so that we could have a nice breakfast. We'd get in the water, we'd swim for 3 hours, take a break, get back in the water and swim for another 3 hours. And it took us, I think it was a total of 28 days of swimming.
Wow.
And we completed it, surprisingly.
For some reason in my head, because you're, obviously talking about walking and then swimming, I'm thinking triathlon type thing around the world. Now, you've walked around the world. Next one, obviously, bit of a struggle to maybe swim around the world, but you could definitely sail around the world, and then you could cycle around the world. Have you thought about other around the world challenges?
I think I'm open. I think I'm
Oh,
open, to what that could look like. I'm so not athletic. I know it sounds funny, but like, even I'm staying here where there's a bike that I could take into town to get my groceries, and I still walk just because I feel like I'm so clumsy and slow moving at things. But I think that I might spend, most of my life still just walking a country here and there. This spring I have my sight on walking through Azerbaijan, where we left at the swimming point, maybe back into Georgia where I started in Tbilisi. So I think that I'll still keep doing some things. I'm open. I just haven't. The biggest adventure right now, which you asked me about, is trying to write these stories down, because I don't have the biggest compulsion to share my stories. I know that they could be inspiring, but I'm generally pretty shy at sharing these things. And so trying to write this down in a way that would be of value and of interest is quite an art form. And so I have an entirely new respect for writers.
How are you financially surviving at the moment? Are you working? Are you able to earn an income?
Yeah. So basically, I still live on very little. I still don't own much. I just kind of travel with a backpack. I've got, Athena, my little cart, which she comes apart and fits into her own duffel bag. As we said, I do a lot of house sits. I always highly recommend that. Like I use trusted house sitters so that you can stay in places for free and then care for people's animals. So it's great to have a cuddle buddy. And then I'll do different workshops. So, for example, Miriam and I actually just held a women in the wilderness expedition for about a week. And we kind of take women through kind of facing their own fears about getting out there in the world. And we teach, building fires and cooking over a fire and navigating and then breath work and overcoming anxiety and things like that. So sometimes we'll do like one or two workshops in the year and I just kind of live off of that. So the way that I survive is to still live on very, very little.
Yeah. Do you have a guilty pleasure? Do you have like a Netflix subscription or anything like that?
I love it. The guilt. Well, one of my guilty pleasures is actually going to cafes and drinking like cappuccinos. But I have to admit, my beloved mom shares her little Netflix account and I can easily binge watch TV shows the way anyone else can. Yeah.
Awesome. I love that. Korean dramas, I'd recommend them as well. And then you'll want to go walk around Korea, which will be an amazing challenge.
Yes.
Few random questions, which are just popping into my head. Did you suffer any injuries, like feet, ankles, hips, all good?
Surprisingly all good. 1 month before I started walking, I stepped off of a curb on the street and I sprained my ankle. And yet I walked, 4 continents and never had a major injury. Not even with water. I had a really good water filter. So I was lucky I didn't get giardia or get any sickness in that way either. The only thing was I had dengue from a mosquito in Vietnam.
And how did you meet Miriam?
Miriam and we ended up having a mutual friend. I mean, first off, I had heard of Miriam. She's just an amazing, for those listening, if they haven't listened to that podcast you did with her, she's just fantastic, having survived in the New Zealand wilderness. I wrote a short story for a little compilation book called Wilder Journeys, which I recommend. And Miriam was also donating a story and helping to edit the book. And she reached out to me. And I remember it was almost like meeting your own little hero where she was like, oh my God, I love what you've done and da-da-da. And I was like, what? I love who you are. Like it was kind of like your little hero reaches out and connects. And we've been like best friends ever since. It's great.
Oh, I love that. Do you know who else I really want you to meet at some point? So Rosie Spale Pope is actually a really good friend of me, but also the Tough Girl podcast. And she's been on a few times. And if you haven't listened to that episode yet, I've done two episodes and maybe a live with her. And she's just the most wonderful, inspirational woman I think I've ever met. And she was doing a couple of years ago, she was running from Brighton to Kathmandu. That was the plan. And she just reached Turkey. And this was December. I can't remember the year now. December 20. Oh, no idea the year. And I and a friend were actually out in Turkey. So we actually met Rosie in Turkey, which was incredible. And then I think COVID all kicked off and she ended up coming home and she ran from like Land's End to John O'Groats and she actually came to stay with me. So not too far from where you are and helped to like celebrate my birthday and stuff. But she's just an absolute inspiration. Like you would love to meet her as well. Oh,
yes. Oh, Sarah, please do. Please do.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think how I can connect all these like amazing women together, and it's so great that you've you've connected with Miriam as well. Like I love all the adventures and stuff. Have you got workshops planned for the rest of the year, or have you got anything planned for 2026?
No, I don't know yet. We will do something in 2026. Right now, both Miriam and I are focusing on writing books, and so we're going to hold off on a workshop for now and then plan for 2026. So I'll let you know for sure.
So Angela, honestly, this is just, I'm just in awe of what you've done and what you've achieved. And I know you're not hugely active on social media, but you do have a website and an Instagram. Do you want to share where people can find out more information about you, keep up to date with the future events, and also be kept when your book is written and published know where they'll be able to find it, where should they find you on the socials?
Sure. So my website is where I have everything, which is shewalkstheearth.com. And I do try to post on Instagram sometimes, and there's a link on the website, but that's Instagram is Angela Marie Maxwell. And yeah, but on my website I have a little newsletter list. I don't send much out, but when the book is there and there's workshops, I will be letting people know there.
Awesome. That'll be fantastic. And Angela, I'd love for you to have final words of advice, final words of wisdom for other women out there who've heard, have heard you speak, have heard your story, and they may not want to necessarily go and spend 6.5 years walking around the world, but they want to step outside their comfort zone. They want to face their fears. They want to grab their own courage and start to do something that inspires them. And apart from just do it, what advice would you like to share? And you can take that in any direction you would like.
Yeah, I think I would kind of just take from what we talked about around courage, that I love being able to remind women that it all starts with the little bits of courage that we can choose on a day-to-day basis that helps to then build up to whatever that thing is that feels pivotal, can feel almost metamorphic in some way, of getting out there and doing something, whether it's a hike or wanting to change your career. That courage is something innate in us, and we get to craft it. And so even on just a day-to-day basis, just knowing that you're strong and courageous, you absolutely were born that way. And, to find the support and the ability to craft that, because really, the sky is the limit.
The sky is the limit. Angela, thank you so much for speaking to me on the Tough Girl podcast. It's been incredible to speak to you. And thank you so much for taking on this adventure and for talking to us today and for sharing more about courage and inspiring other women to follow their dreams and passions. And just best of luck with your future. And to be honest, best of luck with writing the book, because I know people will, I would love to read it at some point. So no pressure, keep writing. And I look forward to when it does go live.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm so honored to be a part of the Tough Girl community and having me on. So thanks.
Hey, tribe. I really hope you enjoyed that episode with Angela. What an incredible inspiration. What a challenge. What a journey. Can't wait for the book to come out. But I also understand that is a huge challenge to try and consolidate all of that experiences into a book. Now, two of the names mentioned during that podcast episode you may not have heard of, or you may have heard of. The first one was the lovely, the incredible, the inspiring Rosie Swale Pope, who, like I mentioned during the episode, is just an absolute inspiration. Now, if you haven't done so already, I'd highly encourage you to go and listen to the first episode that we did with Rosie, which was on November 5th, 2019, when Rosie was 73 years young and running 6,000 miles from Brighton to Kathmandu in Nepal. So obviously this was pre-pandemic, but just to share a little bit more about Rosie. So Rosie Swale Pope, MBE, is a legendary global adventurer, author and motivational speaker. Throughout her life, Rosie has completed numerous marathons in some of the world's most challenging terrains and has embarked upon many adventures, including riding across Chile on horseback and sailing across the globe in a small boat. In 2003, aged 57, she began a 5-year run around the world, traveling 20,000 miles to raise awareness for the early diagnosis of cancer. Rosie is the only person in the world to have completed this solo challenge unsupported, carrying all her belongings in the cart behind her. Now, at the age of 73, Rosie has taken on an exciting new challenge and run a 6,000 miles from Brighton, UK, all the way to Kathmandu in Nepal in support of the charity Phase Worldwide and their work in remote areas of the Himalayas. So that was 6 years ago now. So Rosie will be 79 years young. And honestly, this is what an incredible inspiration. Rosie's episode, even though you're thinking, oh, it's Sarah, it's like so many years ago. I promise you it does not matter. Rosie's voice, her ability to share stories and to talk, she likes talking, is just inspiring. It's one of my favourite episodes. So if you haven't done so already, then please do go and give it a listen. A listen. The other name that popped up was Miriam Lancewood as well, another incredible woman who's been on the Tough Girl podcast. So we actually first spoke with Miriam on the 14th of April 2020, which again was around around sort of pandemic time. And she shares more about her book, which came out. It's called Woman in the Wilderness, a story of survival, love, and self-discovery in New Zealand. And we actually caught up with Miriam this year in 2025. On February the 4th, A Life Beyond Civilization, Wilderness Living, Global Adventures, and Lessons from the Wild. So we learn more about Miriam and her husband, Peter, what they're doing now, where they are living, and how her journey has continued to evolve and the different challenges that they have undertaken. She's also written her sequel, her next book, which is called Wild at Heart. And she's also got another book as well called Wilder Journeys, showcasing her incredible adventures and reflecting on nature's connection in the modern world. So it's a story around survival, resilience, and what it means to live in harmony with nature, far from the conveniences of contemporary life. So there's a couple of episodes there that maybe you haven't listened to. And if you're completely brand new to the Tough Girl podcast, welcome. I'm so excited that you found me. And also, if you've been a regular listener of the Tough Girl podcast, but maybe we've just fallen off your radar for a while, and that's okay. Life gets in the way. Welcome back. You are always welcome to come back and listen to episodes of the Tough Girl podcast. Please don't feel overwhelmed, especially when I mentioned I've got like 750 episodes. You don't need to listen to all the episodes. I mean, you can do. I would love you to. But I also understand at this point, sometimes it's about picking and choosing those episodes that are really going to resonate with you and the stage of life that you're at the moment. And one of the things that I'm going to be doing later on towards the end of the year is I am actually going to be redeveloping the website. This is my plan anyway. And I'm going to have sort of like the pink decade, which I've talked about, which is going to be from like 2015 to 2025. And then after the 10-year anniversary, we're talking about sort of the purple decade, the next decade, and what that's going to look like. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to break the episodes down. So they're currently broken down. If you visit the website, toughgirlchallenges.com, I do have quite a dedicated resources page where all of the episodes are allocated out. So whether you're interested in climbing, ultra running, through hiking, cycling, New Zealand, or mothers and pregnancy, sailors, mountaineers, seven summits, polar explorers, etc. There's a dedicated page on there with all of the episodes that relate to that. What I'm going to be doing on the second half of the year is I'm going to be organising the categories of the Tough Girl podcast under different topics. So whether that's menopause, motherhood, dealing with grief, making a career change, like sort of those types of topics. So that's something that I'm going to be working on. But if you want to keep updated with what I'm doing, with what Tough Girl Challenges is doing, then please follow me on Instagram at toughgirlchallenges.com. You can also follow along on Facebook and subscribe on YouTube. You can find me on all the platforms. No, you can't. That's a lie. You can't find me on all the platforms. I'm not on TikTok. I'm not on Twitter anymore. I am on Threads and Instagram and Facebook and YouTube. Those are the main places to find me as well. But if if you love supporting women in the outdoors, then you can sign up as a patron, support the Tough Girl mission, which is to increase the amount of female role models in the media. You can visit Patreon, patreon.com/Tough Girl podcast, and you can sign up as a monthly patron or an annual patron. Really does make a massive difference. It allows me to have a regular income coming in every month and just takes the pressure off and allows me to fund the running costs. Thank you again for all of the incredible patrons and supporters. It means the world to me to have you here. But all that's left for me to say is, wherever you are, whatever you are doing, give it your all, give it 110%, get after it, go for it, believe in yourself, because I believe in you. Take care, lots of love, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.